Hi everyone, this is Akshat Jain and today we will be discussing about the monthly supply chain newsletter project that I have made for Energy to get the monthly supply chain news from the global as well as the for the Indian markets. So let's see. So first of all, what's the problem statement? The problem statement is very simple that each and every supply chain team has to refer multiple news sources to fetch the news for the global and as well as the Indian EV supply news. Okay, so it's a very manual process because they have to refer multiple news sites and then you have to see whether the news site is relevant or not, and then the article fits for their for ethos requirement or not. So there are multiple layers and it's a very manual process. So why not automate this whole process using Claude, right? So what I have used is what the framework that I have used is I use Claude MCP and a Notion connector. Okay, uh, so what I have done is Claude will fetch the Notion document that I have created, and then it will fetch the instructions that are mentioned in the Notion document, and then it will fetch the news by browsing all over the web according to the instructions that they are mentioned in the Notion document. That's a very simple framework, and let's see what we have done. Okay, so we have the Claude project here. First of all, let's see how the Ether supply chain newsletter looks like. That's the official one, right? So each newsletter is divided into two categories. First for the global market, and then we have the Indian market as well. So you can see the Indian market, right? And each news category, each reference consists of four categories. The first is the rare mining and processing. Then we have the battery manufacturing news. The third one is the OEM strategic news on the recycling part, and then we have the recycling part. Okay. So what we have done is we have made so there are eight categories, four for the global market and four for the Indian market. Okay. So so there are eight categories, and we have made eight plot projects, each referencing to a single Notion document that is have created. Okay, that's the Notion doc hub that I have created for it. It also contains the uh, eight news sections that we have that which are there in the newsletter. Okay, so let's click on just on a single plot project to get the idea. So now let's see the global EV and cell manufacturing. Okay, so this is the project in which we just have to give a prompt and then it will start fetching the news. We will see later on what how it runs and what are the things that we have made in a single project. Okay, and that's the uh, Notion document. The Notion document acts as a very uh, master blueprint for the plot project. Okay, so what we have done is that in our news uh, in this Notion document, we have given the instructions of how Claude should behave and how Claude should fetch the news that we want according to our needs. Okay, so there first of all we have mentioned the rules that Claude should follow. First of all, we have that time rule. Time rule basically tells Claude that you have to only refer to the date range which is provided by the user in the user form sections. So for example, if I have given that date range in the form section that you have to fetch the news from December 1st of December to 31st of December 25. So Claude should only fetch the news within the date range. It should not refer to the date range which is like 2 or 3 months earlier. Right? It's of no use for the newsletter. Okay. Then we have the historical data rule that it should not have any. It should only have current month, operational milestones, or any new project announcements, etc. Okay. Then we have the definition of EV battery manufacturing impact. How what's an EV manufacturing impact looks like, in the news. Then we have the search query topic. So any news which is coming into these uh, news categories, we will be having that kind of news. For example, the first category is of cathode and anode material production. Any news which is linked to anode and cathode material production, we will be having that kind of news in our newsletter. Similarly, we have the second category of battery cell manufacturing, then the third category is of battery cell innovations, and then gigafactory construction and expansions, and so on. So we have seven categories for this new section. Then we have the content that we don't want to have. For example, financial content is not relevant for the supply chain newsletter, right? So any news referring to the any financial content, we will discard that news. Okay. Then we have the market commentary. We also don't want to have market commentary because it is sort of irrelevant to our newsletter. Then any non-operational content, any market sentimental news, price trends that we don't want to have, right? But news may contain that thing, so we will discard that news containing any of these exclusions. Okay. Then we have given the target companies from which we want the news, so we will only fetch the news from the targeted companies. So for example, we have the section B, which is for the global battery cell manufacturers. Okay. So what are the global battery cell manufacturers, which are like CATL, then we have Samsung, then we have LG, BYD, Panasonic, SK on, EALB, etc. Right? So we have given the list of targeted companies, and Claude will use these targeted companies to get the news. Okay. Then we have also provided the news sources. So if you see the news sources are like Reuters, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, Nikkei Asia, Korea Herald, and the second tier sources as well. So why they used only these sources? Why? Because these are the very reputed news sources which cover the relevant news that we want. Then the tier two sources basically are are the news sites which specifically publish the news according to the news category that we want to have. For example, if you see Let only publishes the news which is relevant to the uh, battery manufacturing kind of thing. So then we have Inside EVs, Electric, then Clean Technica, CNED Post, Battery News. So what Claudewell does is it will go to each news URL to find the news from one of these companies in the specific data that they are provided. Okay, so that so this is a loop that we have created. Claude will uh, follow these news sites for each news company that we have provided in the Notion document, right? And then we have the news format. This is the news format. Yeah. So that first of all we have the headline, then we have the company name, source, then publication date, and then the URL, and then we have the summary. Okay, so we have a three-pointer summary for this. So that's how every Notion document has been made for every news section. So we have eight news sections. So we have made eight plot projects and eight Notion documents, each for every news section. Okay, so that's the framework of the Notion document. So what Claude will does is, so we have the Claude project for section B. Okay, so in our Claude project we are creating the memory, instructions, and the files. So what we have provided in the file section is we have provided the Notion document link. That's the Notion document link. And what Claude will does is Claude will will use the link that they provided, and it will fetch the news. So it will fetch the Notion document to get the news. Okay, so that is the chat that can hit. Let's click on this chat, and let's wait. Mhm. Yeah, you just have to scroll. Okay, so if you see, uh, we just have given the prompt that we want the create the newsletter for December 2025 containing only relevant news items published in the month of December. So what it will does is it will fetch the Notion document. As you can see, the started the Notion search query is section B target news company. right? Then that's the ID, news1 URL ID. Then it has started fetching the news. Okay, now if you see it has started by CATL, then it has moved to Samsung SDI, then it has looked for BYD kind of news, then CALB, etc. Right? And CSK on and all the things that here, all the target companies as well. Then what it will does is it will combine all the news items into a single markdown file format. So if you see this is the markdown file format, right? So it contains all the news related to the battery manufacturing, which was published in the month of December 1st to 31, 2025. So it contains the news from CATL, right? This news does is that CATL confirms on 26 large scale sodium ion battery deployment across multiple sectors. Okay, and now you can see it has also given the link as well, right? Then we have the news summary, okay, and then it has fetched the news from SK on, then Gigafactory construction and expansions news category. So that's all the news that it has fetched. Now, if you want to verify, you can verify. See, CATL confirms for 26 star scale sodium ion battery deployment in multiple sectors. Okay, and what's the date? December 28th, 2025. Let's verify. Let's verify. See, December 28th, 2025, and this is the URL. And we can easily, you know, verify the news as well. So that's the basic, framework that I have made. Also, if you see, we have more things as well. Let's have a view on them also. So if you see that, so that was the file section. Okay, then we have the instructions. In the instructions tab, we have to give the system prompts or the system instructions that Claude will have to follow, right? So that's the dynamic configuration that we have set, right? Then the date validation rule, okay, and content rules, what type of content you will accept and what kind of content you will reject. So any financial data or any market content is irrelevant to the EV supply chain, it will reject. Okay. For example, like net revenue, EBITDA. These are the topics that are not relevant to any supply chain news data, right? Stock price, market cap, analyst rating, etc. It will reject all these kind of news. Then we have the source validation. We want that Claude should only follow the tier 1 and the tier 2 news sites, right? And the company's official newsroom. That's it, right? And then it's a 5-step validation, right? That they have made, and that's it. So any deduplication rule, we have given all the rules kind of thing in this instructions tab, project instructions tab. Then we have the memory. So whenever you run the project, Claude will, you know, uh, save all the instructions and the files that it has created into this project memory. So it will retain all the instructions, the user instructions as well as the system instructions that you are given in the past. Okay, so Claude will have that earlier context also, right? That's the point. So for eight, so there are eight new sections, and they are made eight projects. And after compilation, uh, so after running each project, the one file is being generated, right? So what we'll be doing is we will be compiling all the eight files that were made from the eight clock projects into a single one. So how does the compiled newsletter looks like? It looks like this. See, that's the thumbnail. Thumbnail always contains the summary of the newsletter. See, okay. Now it's an 18-page newsletter that I have created for the month of December itself, right? So if you want to verify the news, you can just have to click on the link which are there, and see each news item consists of the news title, then we have the source name, the date of publication, URL, and details. it's basically the summary only. Okay, so if you want to verify the news, you can just verify. Okay, you have to click on any news site that you want. So let's click on the Cobalt news thing, and yep, see, Glencore to ship first cobalt carbon the Congo's new quota system. And see, mm, this is the see cobalt Glencore to ship first cobalt carbon the Congo's new quota system, right? December 9th, 2025. December 9th, 2025. See, we can easily verify the news. Okay, and that's it. So we have the 8 news sections, 4 for the global and 4 for the Indian news market. So let's also have a look for the Indian context as well. So if you see, that's the Indian context. Indian EV battery and cell manufacturing, gigafactory construction and production expansion. So if we see Tata Aggregators Sanand Gujarat gigafactory progress, right? It was from Auto Car Professional December 10, and then you have the details. Okay, right? Then we have another news from Ola that uh, PLI incentive disbursement, right? Again from Autocar. Then we have news that Ola's Roaster Express Bharat Cell certificate has been done, right? They have got the grant for that. All that stuff that we have been given, right? Then we have the Indian OEM specific move that Ola Electric received 367 crore July incentive for 2025. You can also easily verify the news, right? And that's the summary of it, right? Then we have news from Ultraviolet that says that secures for $45 million in Series E funding round, right? So if you see, Ultraviolet is also a very significant EV player in the Indian EV ecosystem, right? Then we have some investments, IFC Invest, GFCL EV, right? All that stuff, and that's the end of it. Okay, so that's how the newsletter looks like. Now, also, I will want to say that this newsletter may contain some inconsistencies, but actually, I have made this project from my end specifically, so I don't know actually what are the categories that Aether wants from the newsletter. So we just so if there are some additions or edits that we want to have, we just have to change the Notion document. That's it. And then just you have to save it, and then you have to give some more context to Claude. What are the changes that have been made? And yes, Claude will understand the context, and then we will be getting the newsletter according to our needs. So that is the whole point of explaining this project. I hope you will understand this. And yeah, that was from my end. Thank you for listening. That is Akshay signing off.